Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Tuesday, July 15th, 2025, and Carney abandons the U.S. in favor of the EU. Some are calling it a soft coup, and we'll start there with the definition of a soft coup, of course. UK Cultural Day gone awry, so some kids showed up wearing Union Jacks, some kids showed up wearing the St. George's Cross, and they were sent home. So that's weird. Carney wants to align us closer with EU and UK, and the UK is aligning themselves with the EU as well in a very concerning consolidation effort. And it's interesting because geographically we're much closer to the United States, so not so good. USA sends education back to the States, but Canada has had education controlled by the provinces for a long time, and it's woke as ever. So it's not a cure-all, but they're all celebrating like they've won. I don't know. I'm skeptical, but we'll see how it all turns out. If you want to give... The Liberals have reintroduced a bill that we talked about 3 years ago that wanted to give the high schoolers a vote. And that's not ideal, right? Because high schoolers haven't lived. They don't understand what it is to pay rent. They don't understand what it is to be responsible for yourself. And unfortunately, that turns into voting for socialist parties because they don't understand the scope of how damaging a 60% tax really is. So that's a concerning situation, right? So I don't want that to happen, but the Liberals seem to be in full control of a minority House of Commons anyway, without Jagmeet Singh and his NDP, who are going broke, and that's interesting. Epstein games in the United States. Yesterday, the Democrats introduced a bill to introduce or to force the disclosure of the Epstein files, at which time the Republicans totally supported that, right? No, they blocked it. So we'll look at that. That's very interesting. Not surprising, though. Vax mandates are back, and I'll show you where they are. Mostly in BC at this point in time, but I think Ontario's got some stuff going on with that as well. And what are they planning? Why are they mandating these vaccines? No real news on projects that have been started. So people who are in charge of these new stand-ups to get infrastructure and building Canada projects started have been asked, hey, what projects have been started? And they don't have an answer. Next question, please. Next question. Yep, that's it. That's all I've got. So that's not great. Blanchette calls Carney out for his abandoned crisis. Well, actually, this was an old video that somebody just repurposed, so I've actually removed that. But it's interesting. Carney was saying, no crisis, no Carney. And there was no crisis. Carney went on vacation, and we're all stuck holding the bag. And apparently, Holly Doan is reporting that there is support across Canada for an oil and gas cap. And so that's bonkers too. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Greg is saying, no one voted for this. Absolutely no one voted for this. I'm willing to bet that the overwhelming majority of Canadians oppose this. How is this not a dictatorship? And Carney, this is a Mark Carney ex-post, and he says, I just spoke with President von der Leyen this morning to discuss the new EU-Canada strategic partnership of the future and the next steps to deepen cooperation on industrial policy, critical raw materials, digital trade, and clean technologies. In the face of a shifting global landscape, Canada and the EU will become even stronger and more competitive through an even closer partnership. And yeah, I don't want that. That doesn't serve, I don't think, Canada's purposes, and I don't think it serves the citizens of Canada. It makes things more difficult, and it pokes in the eye a long-standing, geographically close trading partner and longstanding friend. So that's strange. Here's What's Up Canada, and he says this is a soft coup. A self coup is, oh darn, self coup. I thought it was soft coup. A self coup, also called an auto coup from the Spanish autoglop, or coup from the top, is a form of coup d'etat in which a nation's head, having come to power through legal means, stays in power through illegal means. The leader may dissolve or render powerless the national legislature and unlawfully assume extraordinary powers not granted under normal circumstances. Other measures may include annulling the nation's constitution, suspending civil courts, and having head of government assume dictatorial powers. Between 1946 and the beginning of 2021, an estimated 148 self-coup attempts took place, 110 in autocracies and 38 in democracies. Interesting. And apologies for getting the name wrong. I guess I read that too quickly. It's busy in the morning. Here's Elon Musk, and he points this out about Europe, who we're aligning closer to, according to our prime minister. Either Europe starts having large families or it will keep dying. Interesting. Europe will cease to exist soon. We need to bring back having huge families. The problem is everywhere in the West, and the problem is the system. We demand that women are basically self-sufficient with a job that makes them $150,000 a year, $80,000, somewhere between $80,000 a year and $150,000 a year. And to get to that point, you've got to be 29, 30, 31, right? And if you're 31 and childless, that's not an ideal situation because, well, biology, right? And the older you get, the more likely there are issues with the baby, starting in earnest above 40, right? But even above 30 is problematic. A lot of women want to have babies before they're 30, but not all, right? And I'm not trying to make generalizations, but it seems that our system demanding this of women, because to get self-sufficient in the 1950s meant finding a husband, 1960s finding a husband, 1970s finding a husband and having a part-time job, 1980s finding a husband and having a part-time job, 90s having a full-time job and maybe finding a husband, but you could just get artificially inseminated, 2000 same, and so on and so forth. You see how the ideals have changed. And I think the age you can watch march up of women having babies, the average woman having a baby changed from like 17, 18 to 23, 24 to 26, 27. And I don't know if we're at 30 now, but the last I looked, and I was looking at population because a lot of babies, Canada's having a lot of babies if you look at the numbers, but a lot of people are coming to Canada, having a baby and then flying back home, and the baby is a Canadian and they get all of the government extra whatever, but our birth rate is not near replacement, and that's true in Europe as well. And again, it's because of our system. It's because of what we demand of women in order to have babies, and we can turn off the biological system that forces babies on the time frame that it demands. And so we turn that off and we say, you know what, ladies, if you don't have a 3-bedroom house, 1,200 square feet with, a car and a job that pays for it all, don't even bother having a kid, right? And that's just not how life works, but it is now. And that's what that's done is we've destroyed our society through that. And it's not helping. It's not causing a flourishing society. The culture is dying across the West. And that's obvious. It doesn't seem obvious unless you look around, unless you go to a Walmart. The Globe and Mail says, forget Europe. Let's free ourselves of the United States and forge closer ties with China? With China? What the? So the Globe and Mail is communist. Andy Lee says the Globe and Mail's editor-in-chief, David Walmsley, meets with Wang Di, China's ambassador to Canada, August 8th, 2024. So these people are compromised, right? Ryan says, holy crap, the media is out of control in Canada. Yeah. Let's align with China because that works out for all those Chinese people. Don't you like your 15-minute city and your digital prison? Yeah? No? Be quiet because nobody cares, right? And if you do figure out a way to speak up, you might get kidnapped by the state. Melissa says, I can't think of even one valid reason why Canada should forge closer ties with China instead of the United States. These headlines are unreal. Yep. People are kind of responding and saying, oh, wow, that's what the Globe and Mail is saying. Viva Fry says, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Canadian government has caused Canada to become a national security threat to the United States. I think the United States is a security threat to itself as well. I mean, holy cow, how many states have been completely taken over by communists and or other countries, and or how many full combat forces are in the States just waiting for an order? And I hope that's incorrect, but there are people who are talking about that kind of stuff. And man, it seems very, very plausible. I hope that's wrong. Let's do our grab bag of governance. And there's a whole lot of just kind of not random, because it's not really random, but things that don't kind of fit together, but are happening within our government or around our government. And it's just a whole big grab bag. The Remanded is highlighting Payman and a bunch of other people are getting together and doing a people's parliament, and they're highlighting bad laws that lead to negative outcomes or over too much authority in the hands of a bureaucrat or middle manager or something to that effect. And so it's interesting what they're doing, and they're getting some traction, and I wish them best of luck. And who knows, I may get more involved indeed. But the Remanded said something new is coming out of British Columbia, a citizen initiative to look into bad laws within Canada. This particular quoted post on BC Mental Health Act and involuntary confinement, full episode links in the quoted post thread. So these guys and gals are getting together and talking about bad laws in Canada and highlighting the potential negative fallout of these bad laws. So it says Citizen Commission on the BC Mental Health Act and involuntary confinements, and they talk about what they're able to do. And there was somebody saying under the BC Mental Health Act, there we go, you can be held in confinement for the rest of your life. Wow. the rest of your life if they deem you mentally unwell. Crazy. That seems crazy, right? And so they'll just hold on to you if they deem you crazy forever, right? Kind of like 12 Monkeys, right? With Brad Pitt and what's his name? Bruce Willis. Here is one of the people who is charged with helping coordinate all of the new nation building projects Mark Carney's C5 has supposedly unleashed. And what's been done in the 15 odd days since C5 has been law? Nothing. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. Ryan says, if you need any more evidence that our government isn't rushing to start building these magical nation-building projects, just watch this. Tim Hodgson has no idea what's even happening. He can't even name one single project. He makes it a guessing game for the media to figure out. Right? These people are insufferable. Unbelievable stuff. Here we go. Here it is.
For Mr. Hodgson, so we talk
about... it has been a couple of days. 2 days, 3 days since an incident of fast talking. Okay, here's the question.
Of the major projects, the nation-building projects, are there some or any projects that are sort of at the top of the list at this stage in the discussions? And can you elaborate beyond making regulatory compliance easier, whether the federal government plans to fund any of these projects?
So we are very much in the consultation stage right now with our colleagues in the 13 provincial governments who have perspectives on major projects, with First Nations partners who have perspectives on potential projects, and with proponents on potential projects. There is no specific or ranked order list today. What I could tell you is the projects that come to the top of the list when you sort them by our 5 criteria are likely to be the ones that would be getting designated earlier rather than later. And so I would go back to the 5 criteria laid out in the Act and that were agreed to by the Prime Minister and the 13 provinces and territories. As if you have something in mind, run it against those 5 criteria, and that should give you an idea of where we are in things.
Okay. So go back and look at the criteria, and then compare that criteria to the list. And the ones that have the most criteria will rise to the top, and that's your answer. Bob's your uncle. So next question. Thanks. That was absolutely useless. Perfect. Waste of time, right? And they mean to waste our time. Michael Barrett is responding to this headline. Ottawa offers few details on why ArriveCan contractors failed 16 Indigenous procurement audits. Indigenous procurement audits. The Liberal government let 2 firms collect nearly $1 billion in contracts, many under an Indigenous program, despite failing audits and not meeting the basic criteria. Now they're hiding the full audit findings. Same secrecy, same waste, same Liberals. Why do the Conservatives vote for the Liberals? And again, people send me that Northern Perspective piece explaining it, and my response is, why can't the Conservatives explain their strategy and why they're voting with the Liberals while pretending like Jagmeet Singh to fight them on X? Because it looks like a strategy to screw me and not a strategy to bring down the government or win the next election or do something about the rigged election, which they don't talk about. So if they're not going to explain why they're voting with the Liberals, and instead they're going to pretend on X that they're fighting the Liberals while supporting them in the House of Commons, I'm going to watch the support in the House of Commons and make my decision based on that, not on the bullshit posts on X where they say, oh, these Liberals, they're the same people. Yeah, well, you keep supporting them, morons, right? So unless you've got a good explanation for that, I got no time for this crap. Holly Doan is reporting, and she unblocked me, so it was good. I got blocked by her hacker because I called him out. Or her out, I guess. I don't know if it was a him or her. And then they blocked me. And then when Holly Doan got her account restored, I was like, yay, Holly Doan. Oh, I'm blocked. I was like, congratulations. Oh, why am I blocked now? And then I sent an email. And so I said, hi, I run this show. I promote your content. I think you guys do a great job. Thanks so much for what you do. Can you please unblock me? And not that I don't have access, but it's just one of those things that I think it was unintentional and she didn't know that I was blocked. Anyway, regardless, I'm unblocked now, so that's good. She's reporting Liberal organizers petition the Commons to give high schoolers the vote. Petition sponsor is MP Nate. So this is Nate Erskine-Smith, and he's one of 20 Liberal MPs to support identical private bill 3 years ago. So they're trying to bring this back. We've talked about it before. It's a terrible idea. Kids don't understand the implications of real life. They don't get it. And 60% tax is too high, and we're being taxed, I think, even higher than that if you look at everything at all levels of government. So it is. We pay tax on taxes. And our government pretends that this is a good idea, and they want to tax the gains you make on your house. So unbelievable. Leo Housakis, Senator Housakis, says Ottawa is asking Canadians what they want to see. How about a budget? How about a budget? How about a budget? Actually, I want to see all of them held accountable for their crimes during COVID. And I want to have them in front of a court, and I want them to have to explain themselves fully to people who are skeptical about their answers. That's what I want. Anyway, Housakis says, how about 1, a balanced budget, 2, lower taxes, 3, proposals that attract foreign investments, 4, policies that unleash our energy sector, 5, plans to reduce bureaucracy while incentivizing services, or while increasing services. Yeah, sure, that's a good short list. We could do that, but again, I wouldn't trust the current people in charge to deliver on any of those promises because, like a genie, right? If you wish, I guess genies are supposed to be tricksters, or they're supposed to be like to give you your wish in a bad way somehow. Not Aladdin's genie, but like other genies. So if you wish to be like a really good jumper, they'll turn you into a frog or something like that. Like, I want to be the best high jumper ever, and then we like, poof, you're a frog. And so maybe that's a different thing. Maybe that's a counter genie. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I feel like the Liberals are like that bad version of the genie. And they would say, oh, well, we've lowered your taxes by destroying your ability to earn money, and here's your stipend of cricket bread. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I guess that's true, but it's not good, right? Like, yay, I can jump high, but I'm a frog. So darn. Tamara Litch is reporting a reminder that Chris Carbet, who was granted bail 2 weeks ago on June 30th, is still in prison. I said, why? I don't have any information about what's going on, if that's legit. Somebody says, Gloria says, I believe he's getting out today, last I heard, praying that's true. And Tamara Litch agrees. I don't know, but that seems petty and wrong of the people who are in charge. It seems like they're very punitive consequences, not letting, if you let violent criminals out on bail same day as they're arrested, and you let other people who are fighting the Canadian government for their freedom rot in jail 2 weeks after their bail has been granted, seems punitive. Seems like they're not treating everybody the same. Two-tiered legal system? Yeah. Juno News says TikTok CEO is seeking an urgent meeting with Industry Minister Mel Joly as the company prepares to wind down its Canadian operations under a federal shutdown order issued last year. I have never installed TikTok. I've seen TikToks because people come up to me and say, you've got to see this video. And I've seen them on X and Twitter. And so it's not that I've not seen TikTok. It's just that I'm completely agnostic. I don't care if TikTok ever goes away. I don't care. It doesn't bother me one bit. I don't care. And I know there are people out there who are like, oh, this was a big deal. I don't care. I don't care at all whatsoever. I don't care. So if they stay or if they go, it doesn't impact me one iota, not one bit. I don't care. So I just thought people should know, though. They're trying to last ditch. Trump was going to do the TikTok ban, and then he said, oh yeah, TikTok can stay. Maybe Elon can buy them. And then I guess Elon Musk looked into that, and that didn't happen. So I don't know. Again, it seems just like another vector to push propaganda. It seems like it's proven that TikTok is pushing wasting time and dancing and dangerous videos in the United States that are addictive, just the same, but dangerous, mind-wasting, time-wasting videos. And then in China, TikTok is showing science experiments and how to do wall sits better or something like that. I don't know, whatever thing that you're trying to do, it's telling you how to do it, and it's learning and like improving, et cetera, et cetera. So their kids are smarter because they use it, and our kids eat Tide Pods, I guess, which maybe is the goal of the app in the first place. But nobody's making you use it, right? Nobody's making your kids use it. CTV News reports Canada needs major increase in warfighters, military analysts say. I'm shocked. I reported recently that they just changed the timeline on the recruitment because they didn't want to fail so badly. They're like, yeah, we'll get to the recruitment whenever we get to the recruitment. Okay. So as soon as we become part of the EU's army, that's when they'll implement the draft, and everybody who is drafted will, just be drafted, and that'll be that. And then the increase in warfighters will just happen because of that connection to the EU and stuff. I hope I'm wrong about that, but it feels like the people in charge of the military don't seem to actually care about the military, and in fact want to make it into a woke military. And I think they're pretty sure that they'll be able to onboard all of the drafted recruits into their woke cult. And if not, well, now you're a military guy. They'll bring charges against you and then put you in a military prison. Dean says student unemployment in Ottawa is sitting around 20%, with endless stories about young people handing out hundreds of resumes and getting nowhere. And yet there are hundreds of LEMA requests for food service, admin assistants, and landscapers. What are we doing, Canada? We're being invaded. That's what we're doing. We're being invaded in real time. And our government is paying for it through these LEMA things, and incentivizing the businesses to use those LEMA things and have the government pay for it. They want that to happen. Here is this Fox News guy, Stephen Miller. James Woods likes this breakdown. I think this is true. We'll listen to, I think, the first minute. Maybe we'll listen to the whole 2 minutes. Here we go.
The left has been trying to shove Marxism, socialism, and communism down the throats of the American people for generations now. They ultimately were not able to do this during the Cold War because the middle class revolted against communism and Marxism and social engineering. The left shifted their tactics. The Democratic Party shifted their tactics to use migration as a weapon to break down the middle class and to gain political power and control in this country. They used migration to destroy our public education system, to destroy our healthcare system, to destroy wages and working conditions for the middle class of this country, and in effect, to destroy social and community cohesion. And then in that rubble, in that chaos, in that conflict, to then try to articulate the need for ever more government control, ever more government redistribution, ever more government power, and then to ultimately import voters to then support that agenda, to import voters who do not believe in limited government, who do not believe in the U.S. Constitution. And that is why you are seeing now this violent insurrectionist revolt by the Democrat Party against immigration and customs enforcement. You see video after video after video of Democrat shock troops in the streets hurling rocks at ICE officers and Border Patrol in their vehicles, firing projectiles at them, violently assaulting them, and yes, opening fire on them. Multiple assassination attempts against our brave and heroic ICE and Border Patrol agents, and barely a word of condemnation from the Democrat Party. In fact,
so there you go. The Democrats encourage it, right? So we are living through the echo of a failed coup in the Cold War, according to him. And they changed tactics. And the tactic now is clowered Piven, which is just overwhelming people with so many people that all of the systems disintegrate because they can't keep up, and they just collapse under the weight of all of these people. And then they can implement their communism, because they say the solution to this is obviously communism and higher taxes. More taxes and communism. That's the only way to fix this. So unfortunately, the technology is there for them to implement their system. The system is already running in China. Here is Lisa, and she's a city councilor in Pickering, and she is a tenacious bulldog, man. She has had everything thrown at her, and she continues to come back and fight with a smile on her face and inform people. So good for her. Here she's talking about surveillance cameras that have gone up in Pickering, and nobody in Pickering has been told about them. This is 15-minute cities. This is geofencing. All of this is in play right now in Ontario, and nobody knows about it, and Pickering's hiding it, and Lisa's exposing them and taking heat for exposing them.
Hey guys, Councillor Lisa Robinson here. Today I want to talk about the 15 overt surveillance cameras installed across Pickering, Ajax, and Oshawa, without a vote, no public consultation, and no debate. And as a disclaimer, I just want to say I think there's more than 15 overt cameras, but I haven't checked on it lately, but I have put a message in to Durham Regional Police to find out. Now back to these cameras. They say that they're for public safety, but the truth? This is something far bigger. This is the early infrastructure for a smart surveillance state, and it's happening right here under our noses. When I started asking questions, I got the runaround. A constituent reached out to me in June of 2023 asking why all these cameras had quietly been installed across Pickering, with no notice, no debate, and no transparency. So I asked. I contacted Durham Regional Police. They said they didn't know anything about these cameras. They told me to call the region of Durham. So I did. And the region said the same. And then they told me to call Durham Regional Police Services again. So I did, and suddenly they knew.
There you go. And so there's more to this video. It's a 5-minute long video. We just listened to the first minute. But when you look at it from the point of view of this strategy, what he's talking about, the demographics being shifted to people who don't believe in basic freedoms that we fought for in these countries, United States and Canada, and our culture is being overwhelmed by their culture at every level, municipal, provincial, federal. And within that context, the surveillance state going up, it is very concerning. And then Doc Malik says, over the past 5 years, I've had a real awakening. I'm not claiming to know everything, but after interviewing over 300 guests and recording more than 340 episodes, I'm on like 2061 today? 2061, which is a lot. Anyway, 340 episodes. I've had the mother load of downloads, and I genuinely believe I now have one of the clearest views of what's going on in the world today. Here's what I see. The end game of the ruling oligarchy, the banking mafia cabal, is a one world government. This has been decades in the making. I think it's been hundreds of years in the making. But now they're in the final stretch because the technology is finally in place to make their vision a reality. To get there, they're waging 5th generation warfare, psychological, information, spiritual on us and within us. But they have a problem, 8 billion people. I think the population's numbers fudged too anyway. That's too many to control, too many who might resist. So one key part of their plan, whether people want to face it or not, is depopulation. Not because of scarcity, but because they don't need us anymore. The age of consumption is over. Now begins the age of consolidation. They want to hoard the wealth, the land, the power, and corral the rest of us into manageable ghettos, pacified by screens, drugs, processed food, and distraction. Modern day bread and circuses. They want us dumbed down, sick, spiritually empty, short-lived, and obedient. Why? Because these people are anti-human. They're using the climate agenda to convince us we're a blight on the planet. So we censor ourselves, stop traveling, stop reproducing, stop living, and build the very prison we'll walk into willingly, all in the name of saving the planet. The end game, one world government. One set of laws for us. The laws will not apply to them, just like during COVID, by the way. Right? If you're Kenny and his group of people, you can hang out on a restaurant terrace and drink alcohol together and hang out, and that's no problem, no masks. But if you're me, I can't go to the grocery store without a mask, right? Bull poop. One police force, one army. And if you're on the other side of that, if they say you've said something, you've talked to somebody like Donald Trump, you're very Trumpian, they're going to throw you in jail. Total control. Yeah. And above all, the ruling elite, untouchable, unaccountable, and free. Now I know this might sound absurd. Most people are fundamentally good and can't fathom such evil. It's easier to write me off as mad than to face the truth. I understand. But that cognitive dissonance will cost you your freedom and your children's futures. If you can ask just one question, think critically, step outside the narrative and investigate, you'll see that I'm not a lunatic. You'll see I'm right. And this is real. We must resist. Now, we must inform and awaken as many people as we can. Share this, share others. Even if even a fraction of the 8 billion people wake up, this agenda crumbles. I think that's true. And I think that I was hoping that Trump would come in and lay the agenda bare, but it looks like my hopes were misplaced. It really is that simple. But I do think that if people realize what's going on, the agenda falls apart because people won't comply. Just like COVID. Like COVID, people didn't comply. And the people who were complying were worried that the people who didn't comply were going to die. And when we didn't die, the lie collapsed, right? And so all we have to do is say no. All we have to do is say, that's crazy, you crazy people. And it collapses. But they have surveillance powers. They have censorship powers, the likes of which we do not understand. Here's Lisa again. This is a different video. City of Pickering just took $10,000 to sell your privacy to Enbridge without your consent. What other municipalities are they gathering data from? I would be shocked if Guelph wasn't among them. How do you opt out? I don't think there is an opt-out, but we should have an opt-out. Here we go.
Hey guys, Councillor Lisa Robinson here. Today I want to lay it out for you. The City of Pickering has quietly built a surveillance state, and you paid for it. They know your gas usage, they track your car, they monitor your phone, they track when you enter and leave the city, they collect data when you visit parks, go to the gym, register your child for a program, or pay a parking ticket. This isn't a theory. It's in the contracts, the agreements, and the budget documents, right there in black and white. Today I want to talk about just one example. The $10,000 deal with Enbridge Gas that we did back in May of 2024. A so-called pilot project to collect anonymized natural gas usage data from your home and from your businesses. Not just general stats, household level data, your personal home, its consumption. A third-party contractor named Bloom was hired to build a decarbonization benchmarking tool. Enbridge Gas does the collection and the analysis. The city of Pickering can request access to your data as long as they ask within 2 years of commencement of this project. So you need to ask yourself, why would the city of Pickering want access to your private information? And if this was such a great idea, why isn't the city of Pickering screaming it from the rooftops, celebrating it with public town halls and open forums? Why the silence? That's not passive, that's surveillance. And the reason? So Pickering can meet its ICLEI and Corporate Climate Action Plan targets. What is ICLEI? It's a global governance network tied to the UN and the World Economic Forum. Pickering signed on back with them back in the early 2000s. Their visions include car-free zones, which is already part of Durham Region's long-term planning, and the Pickering has already adopted those plans. Geofencing, already active in our scooter programs and now being implemented on our trail systems. Digital IDs, behavioral-based tracking, net zero regulation, and yes, surveillance. And don't forget about the 15 or possibly even more now overt CCTV cameras recently installed across Pickering, Ajax, and Oshawa.
Scary stuff, right? Scary stuff. And so they're moving to use this just the same way China's using it. And so that's concerning and should probably concern us, right? And we should know about that. Anyway, the stream is, we've got